Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the international webinar series on holistic health, well-being, and sustainable development 2025, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 77 years of independence and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030, Viksit Bharat at 2047, and also World Breastfeeding Week as part of awareness and campaigns. In collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Arts, Sciences and Wellbeing. So before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's commemorations. Today, we'll learn about more organizations and also about breastfeeding awareness. So today we'll be looking at IFAN, the International Baby Food Action Network, which is an international coalition aimed to improve maternal and infant and young child health through protection, support and promotion of breastfeeding and optimal complementary feeding. It was formed by a small group of organizations and activists concerned about high mortality of formula-fed babies, who came together in 1979 at the end of the World Health Organization UNICEF joint meeting on infant and young child feeding. The meeting had recommended an international code to regulate the marketing of infant formula, bottles and teats and other products marketed as breast milk substitutes. So the core focus areas include international code, Codex Alimentarius, contaminants in baby foods, health and environmental impacts, infant feeding in emergencies, and WPTN. The 7 principles of IFAN include: first principle, infants and young children everywhere to have right to the highest attainable standard of health. Second principle, families and in particular women and children have the right to access to adequate and nutritious food and sufficient and affordable water. Principle 3, women have the right to breastfeed and to make informed decisions about infant and young child feeding. Principle 4, women have the right to full support to breastfeed for 2 years or more and to exclusively breastfeed for first 6 months. Principle 5, all people have the right to access quality healthcare services and information free of commercial influence. Principle 6, health workers and consumers have the right to be protected from commercial influence that may distort their judgment and decisions. Principle 7, people have the right to advocate for change that protects, promotes, and supports basic health in international solidarity. So IFAN is made up of public interest groups and individuals working worldwide to reduce maternal, infant, and young child morbidity and mortality. The network strives for the universal and full implementation of the international code and resolutions aiming to improve the health and well-being of infants and young children, their mothers, and their families. The founding group consisted of 6 NGOs. More than 40 years later, IFAN has grown into a coalition of almost 300 citizen groups in 168 developing and industrialized nations. It is the oldest single issue network in the world. So the need to promote breast milk, as the breast milk is most universally available and complete food resource. However, it has been under attack for at least 60 years by commercial interests. In 2018, the World Health Organization estimated that 8,20,000 child lives could be saved every year among children under 5 years if all children 0 to 23 months were optimally breastfed. So IFAN brings together the non-governmental organizations which are addressing infant feeding and health and unite these organizations behind a common aim, improving breastfeeding rates, reducing dependence on industrial artificial milk products, and protecting women and families' freedom of choice based on full and unbiased information and support, free from commercial influences. So, regulations for the marketing of infant formulas is a key campaign by means of International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes, which was adopted as a resolution by the World Health Assembly in 1981. Since 1981, the issues covered in the code have been clarified or extended by a series of subsequent resolutions of the World Health Assembly. In the face of enormous power of multinational companies which dominate the world infant baby food market, IFAN has continued So in the face of enormous power of the multinational companies, which dominate the world infant baby food market, IFAN has continued to find means to mobilize people effectively to press the governments for action, undertake citizen monitoring of compliance with the recommendations of the World Health Assembly, and stimulate self-reliance and effective action of and at the grassroots level. So IFAN's International Code Documentation Center in Malaysia supports governments to draft laws to implement the international code and organizes global monitoring, surveys of industry, marketing malpractices by citizens groups. The global strategy for infant and young child feeding is a key resolution adopted by the World Health Assembly in 2002 to provide further policy support for breastfeeding in all areas. The World Breastfeeding Trend Initiative, WBTI, was designed by IFAN's regional office for Asia as participative tool for countries to assess the state of policy and programs and press governments to take action to bridge the gaps. To date, over 90 countries have completed and or repeated their assessments of implementation of the global strategy. So monitoring the international code and pressing governments and industry to adapt in full have thus remained a central and ongoing struggle for network. So IFAN groups are supporting their governments and monitoring implementation of the global strategy in all countries. The Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative, BFHI, Breastfeeding and Human Rights with Focus on Children's and Women's Rights, Codex Alimentarius, Commission Standards, Maternity Protection, Legislation, Infant Feeding and Climate Change, Risks of Contamination of Breast Milk Substitutes, Infant Feeding, in emergencies, economic and environmental impacts of not breastfeeding. IFAN groups in more than 168 countries are working actively on one or more of these issues. So these groups are organized into 8 geographical and linguistic regions: Africa, English and Portuguese speaking; Africa, French speaking; Asia, Arab world; Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean; North America, and the Ocean. So the campaign for which IFAN is best known is the International Boycott of Nestle for breaches of the International Code. Baby Milk Action, BMA, IFAN's group in the UK, coordinates the boycott and company campaigns. In 2020, their work continued in the face of the climate emergency, when it was increasingly urgent to protect, promote, and support breastfeeding to safeguard the health of humans and the planet. So the vision and mission of IFAN include mission to protect, defend, and empower. IFAN International Baby Food Action Network works globally to ensure that all babies have access to breathing free from interference by the baby food industry and products that compete with breastfeeding. So this is achieved through various strategies, including building alliances, protecting against misleading advertisements, advocating for responsible governments, empowering communities, and monitoring and surveillance. So IFAN's vision is a world where breastfeeding is the norm for the well-being of mothers and babies. Every woman has the information, support, and resources needed to breastfeed successfully, feels confident and empowered to breastfeed her baby free from judgment and pressure, especially commercial. Experience the benefits of breastfeeding for herself and her baby. Breastfeeding is recognized as the ideal way to feed babies, both for health and development. Protected and promoted for governments, healthcare professionals, and society at large. IPFAN forms partnerships with various NGOs and associations that share the goal of protecting the rights of breastfeed and collaborates with government to develop and implement public policies that favor breastfeeding. IPFAN investigates and expresses the deceptive practices of the baby food industry, which repeatedly and abusively misleads mothers and families through false advertising, and work towards implementation of legislation that protects consumers from advertising campaigns that could harm breastfeeding practices. So, advocacy for responsible governments, IPFAN urges governments to adopt and enforce the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes, monitors the enforcement of the code, and advocates for policies that protect the right to breastfeed, ensuring that the interests of children and mothers are prioritized. IPFAN continuously monitors, adheres to the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes, documents and reports violations of the code, ensuring that unethical practices are exposed and corrected. Through these actions, IPFAN strengthens the global movement of favor of breastfeeding, protecting the rights of mothers and babies against the pressure of the baby food industry and products that compete with breastfeeding. Now let's look at various focus areas. Look what they are still doing. A summary report on the monitoring of the digital marketing of products that interfere on breastfeeding. So the focus area of code monitoring. The main objective of this work was to document in an updated, fast and global way the presence of the internet of various forms of commercial promotions of products that interfere with the practice of breastfeeding and that are prohibited by the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. To this end, IPFAN members from different regions of the world carried out a quick and simultaneous monitoring in 1 month of these unethical promotional practices, covering the period from 13 December 2024 to January 12, 2025. From their computers or mobile devices, members search for violations online in the following product categories. Even you can also contribute any such violations if you have observed. We'll let you know how to contribute. So commercial infant formula up to 6 months, commercial infant formula from 6 months to 1 year, commercial infant formula with special needs, bottles, teats, and complementary foods. These are different categories under which members search for violations online. Upon finding a violation, a screenshot was taken for evidence and the record was entered into a Google form developed by IPFAN Brazil, available in 4 languages: Portuguese, Spanish, English, and French. So you can also, if you find anywhere, this is especially online, you need not tune into any channel. While you are browsing internet, if you find any breastfeeding substitutes, which says that this is alternative to breastfeeding or this is better than breastfeeding, then that is violation. So you can take a screenshot and you can fill the Google form and attach the screenshot along with the details. of the website, and so that we can report and bring awareness. Another focus area is Codex Alimentarius. So what is Codex Alimentarius and why does IFAN attend? Now you may be wondering, what is Codex Alimentarius? So Codex is a joint United Nations body created in 1963 by the World Health Organization, WHO, and the FAO to develop food standards and guidelines and codes of practice under the joint FAO World Health Organization Food Standards Program. IFAN has been attending Codex meetings since 1995 when the World Trade Organization, WTO, was established. So overall, Codex had a damaging influence on the protection of breastfeeding and child health. The lack of transparency and poor conflict of interest safeguards, coupled with the dominance of food corporations and powerful exporting nations, has led to Codex adapting weak standards for many harmful food and commodities. So these standards have been regularly used in attempts to stop governments bringing in strong marketing controls, with interventions made at the WTO concerning commercial milk formula marketing, labeling, or safety testing regulations of another member state wrongly treating Codex standards as a regulatory ceiling for trade purposes. In fact, governments have the sovereign right to adopt any legislation they consider necessary to protect child health as long as it does not violate international trade principles. So largely because of the IFAN's consistent advocacy at Codex, the standards on the foods for infants and young children adapted after 1995 all refer in some way to the international code, the global strategy, and or the subsequent WHO resolution on infant and young child feeding, and the Codex Code of Ethics and International Trade continues to require member states to make sure that the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes and relevant resolutions of World Health Assembly setting forth principles for protection and promotion of breastfeeding being observed. The 44th Codex Nutrition Committee in October 2024 tested a new draft prioritizing system where Codex members and observers were asked to assess and score the impact new standards might have, and not only on trade but on global public health and food safety, something we have been calling for and that could help ensure that standards are in line with WHO recommendations. So this did seem to be prompt governments to recognize the role Codex has had and still has in flooding the world with plastic packaged UPF and be more alert to the risks of approving the new global standards and guidelines. So the next focus area is contaminants in baby foods. Now, infant and young child feeding and chemical residues. Parents, carers, and health professionals are highly concerned about all the problems in the infant and young child feeding in a contaminated world. The repeated failures in systems to protect the safety of children's food and the presence of toxic substances and chemical residues in food can all have harmful effects on children's health. In this context, parents, carers, and health professionals need objective and independent information on the risks and dangers of environmental pollution. So the key points include every human body is estimated to contain up to 200 man-made chemicals. Now, all human beings and wildlife carry this body burden of industrial chemicals. They are persistent and accumulate in organisms as they move higher up the food chain. Both men and women carry this body burden from exposure to chemical substances. Many of these are fat soluble, meaning they dissolve in body fat. And so their levels can be measured in body tissues and fluids like blood, serum, urine, sperm, human umbilical cord, blood, and breast milk. So research has shown that these chemicals can have a harmful impact in humans and wildlife. Some of them are known to cause cancer, some are neurotoxic, some impair the immune and endocrine system, are associated with the development of chronic diseases, and may even have intergenerated effects on reproduction. Little is known about how they interact in combination with each other. So, infants and young children are particularly vulnerable to the effects of exposure to chemicals because they are at the most sensitive stages of human development. Prenatal exposure to chemicals when a baby is in its mother's womb is of greater concern than postnatal exposure when a baby is exposed after birth to residues of chemicals found in breast milk or to chemicals in formula and feeding bottles. So, breast milk contains proactive agents and helps the child develop a strong immune system. Breastfeeding can mitigate the effects of a chemical exposure in the womb, whereas formula feeding does not offer any protection or mitigation. So, formula feeding leaves a heavy carbon footprint and contributes to significantly to a contamination of the environment with these chemicals. Policymakers should be alerted to the need of legislate to reduce the waste and contamination caused by production, distribution, and disposal of non-biodegradable formula feeding products. Infant follow-up and toddler formula, as well as all sorts of industrial baby foods, let alone industrial foods for older children and adults, can be contaminated, often at higher levels, by the same chemical residues found in breast milk. Exposure to some of these substances can act also through the polycarbonate plastic bottles and cups used to give these foods and drinks to infants and young children, or by the transfer to foods and beverages from feeding bottles and the lining of tin cans and packages. So, powder infant formula can be intrinsically contaminated with bacteria. Reconstituted powdered infant formula can be contaminated by same and different bacteria through incorrect preparation, handling, and storage. To avoid damage caused by these sorts of contamination, it is important to follow thoroughly the World Health Organization recommendations for the preparation of powdered infant formula. Exception in cases of industrial disasters of exceedingly high levels of dangerous residues after industrial disasters, IFAN emphasizes the recommendation to protect, promote, and support breastfeeding. This holds true even when there is evidence of the presence of chemical residues in breast milk, because the benefits of the breastfeeding far outweigh any possible harm. Furthermore, IFAN recommends that the debate about the detection of chemical residues in breast milk should not unduly influence a mother's decision to breastfeed. See, anyway, if breast milk contains, then that means the environment itself is highly toxic. So that when breast milk is not provided to the baby, then baby is becoming more vulnerable. That's why we see infant mortality is high. So providing other food like infant formula food, it is always better. The first priority goes to the breast milk. So future parents and carers of children should be informed of practical ways to reduce exposure to toxic chemicals, and all of us should campaign to reduce the amount of chemicals in our environment and to counter the powerful lobby of the plastics and chemical industries. So key messages include breastfeeding is the norm for feeding infants and young children. Any other feeding mode is inferior. Early, within 1 hour from birth, exclusive for 6 months, and then continued with adequate and safe complementary foods. Breastfeeding for 2 years and beyond provides optimal unique, and perfectly balanced nutrition for a baby, even in a contaminated environment. So that's why it is very much essential, because in contaminated environments, the far better food, the best thing you can do is breastfeed your baby because everything else is highly contaminated. So, breastfeeding offers many irreplaceable positive health effects for both mother and child. Economic advantages for families, communities, societies, and health systems, and ecological advantages for the environment. Pregnant women and breastfeeding mothers have the right to receive full and unbiased information. They should thus be alerted to the problems caused by chemical contaminants in their body fluids and should fight in alliance with the breastfeeding support and environmental groups for the reduction of chemical residues in food and environment. All citizens should work to raise awareness of the dangers of environmental pollution, including that brought about formula and bottle feeding and by the undue use of industrial baby foods, and should demand their government to act in their best interest. So there are various chemicals like in plastic and apart from the chemicals used in production or transport or storage, especially PFAS, that is polyfluoroalkyl substances, which are a group of thousands of forever chemicals, so called because they are not biodegraded and persist therefore in the environment for years together. So our life is just 100 years. You can imagine these chemicals will stay in the environment for hundreds and thousands of years. That means once we use chemicals, that's all. Then our future generations are going to be impacted by these chemicals, generations over generations. Because of that, there will be lot of genetic variations that can create new diseases and disorders and birth anomalies, or we can see many more things happening. So the first PFAS were used by the industry and were released into the environment. In the mid-50s of the last century, they are still with us. And their number can be increased almost indefinitely because the original molecule can be easily manipulated to obtain new one with longer or shorter chemical chains. So if some PFAS, such as PFOS and PFOA, are banned because they are shown to cause cancer or other harms to health and the planet, and it can take ages before the evidence is put together. That's why, every family has cancer patient. Every family has diabetic patient. Every family has cardiac or hypertension patient. Why? Because everywhere chemicals. So that's why, see, earlier we didn't have that much research and we did not foresee the dangers perceived by use of chemicals. But now we are paying for it, and our future generations are also going to pay for all these. So it's high time that we stop using. Otherwise, not only we pay in a magnitude, but our future generations will suffer like anything. So it's a high time for the future of ourselves and also our future generations. We need to stop using this and go for an alternative, environment friendly, biodegradable biofertilizers, or which are natural. The chemical industry will easily replace them with new ones. All the other industries, plastic, garment, furniture, transport, and food packaging, cookware, cosmetics, electronics, etc., need PFAS for their products to make them resistant to water, stains, and heat. So the demand for chemical industry is constant and it is constantly growing. So now how you can prevent? Just reuse, recycle, so that you stop demand for new products. single-use plastic. Every time you use a plastic and throw out, you are consuming lot of chemicals in the production, and also that waste, where it will go, it is again going to stay thousands of years. Landfills and burning of them again releases greenhouse gases and toxins and carcinogenic agents into the air, that is inhaled, consumed by living beings. Again, it causes cancer and various other diseases. So it's our karma. In fact, we are doing all these things and we are paying for it. And karma will not leave everyone. We are paying it in the form of, we are taking the suffering in the form of different ways. So we need to avoid in all doing such kind of acts. So PFAS act as an endocrine disruptors. So by interfering with hormones, they cause harm to thyroid, liver, and immune system. Among others, they interfere with hormones related with our reproductive systems. Exposure to PFAS may have lifelong impact because they bioaccumulate in our bodies and act during pregnancy, early childhood, and adolescence when cells divide and multiply rapidly. So this may be the reason why some PFAS, PFOS, and PFOA, for example, have already been shown to be associated with cancers of reproductive and related organs, such as the breast. You can see even plastic is found everywhere in the world, even in our body, in the blood, in the organs, and everywhere. Why? Because of microplastics, microfibers. When we are consuming, when we are inhaling, everywhere the plastic is there. So constantly it interferes in our biological process, chemical process within the body, and it alters it. And because of that, we have cancers and lot more diseases. When an association with cancer or cardiovascular disease is ascertained, one or more PFAS may be banned by national and supranational authorities, like the EU, for example, European Union. Unfortunately, banned PFAS are quickly replaced by similar and untested molecules. Generally, what they do, again, they bring out some other chemical in different form, different name, different composition that does more damage than existing chemicals. So PFAS are present in the food chain. They are lipophiles, therefore their concentration is higher in fat-rich food, such as fish, meat, eggs, milk and milk products, and any other meat products. That's why people who are eating more meat products or people who are non-vegetarians are getting more diseases than people who are eating vegetarian. But unfortunately, that is not widely promoted. There are a lot of, because industry, meat industry is a $1 billion industry. Milk industry is a $1 billion industry. You know, you see every ad you see, the second ad would be on meat products. And that is also an addiction, obsession, to make it is used as a substance, addictive substance, to manipulate you, to persuade you. So these are various aspects we need to understand. Why we are becoming more vulnerable. And when they reach human beings who are at the top of the food chain, their levels are higher in fat-rich tissues, like the breast, than in blood and urine, because they are fat soluble. Wherever there is fat in our body, they are concentrated much in high quantities. That's why we have breast cancer and various other cancers, especially where we see these fatty bodies or fatty cells. But also in cow milk and cow milk based formula, you can see these, because Even those animals are fed with contaminated water and food and so on. That's why it's very easy, you can introduce something to the environment and you don't know what you are doing. And the moment and it takes years and years because we don't study the impact. We are not bothered, but slowly and gradually it gives it over a period of time, it gives us a lot of impacts, not only to us, but also to the environment. By the time we realize that we have already committed a blunder and we cannot redo it. So their concentration is proportional to the concentration of PFAS in the diet. Carnivorous animals and human beings ingest more PFAS than vegetarian ones. That's what all the meat eaters are having more toxics and chemicals in their bodies. That means more diseases and more disorders. But you are persuaded by the media and the society, so-called society, which is also persuaded by the media, the compulsion that if you eat meat only, you are healthy. Lot of myths are there. You are killing by preferring a meat. You are preferring a victim. For you to consume food, do we need to kill an animal for that? Is that cruelty? Animal cruelty is required. Animal suffering is required. Are we human beings? Or something else? Are we human beings with compassion? Are we human beings with empathy? Are we human beings with concern about our fellow living beings? We need to think over, right? We are not cruel animals or ghosts or devils which prey on meat and other things, right? Occasionally, okay, if you are not able to, resist yourself, it's not required because that's an industry that promotes. You should know what is good for you. It is not my business or someone else's business to tell you what to eat. You should have your own consciousness. You should have your own maturity to see what is good for you and also for the environment. Without inflicting pain, without inflicting suffering, without creating pollution, what best you can do when that kind of consciousness, when that type of consciousness comes in every person, the world will be a better place. As long as that doesn't come, people continue to suffer. There is no other way because it is all our own karma, our own wrongdoings and we cannot expect, because when we are doing wrong things to ourselves and others, can we expect good things happen to us? Never. Right? Whatever we do, it will come back to us. When we are doing bad things, definitely bad things will come. We cannot avoid them. So think over it, ponder over it, and try to do good to yourself and also to others. So it is also proportional to the concentration of PFAS in drinking water because everything is polluted. Air is polluted, water is polluted, soil is polluted. No, you cannot escape. That is how karma hits back. No, karma in simple terms or in scientific terms are the wrongdoings. Now we have done the wrong things, blunders. Now we are paying back. As simple as that. For example, in the female population of an area in northeastern Italy, where water has been heavily polluted by a PFAS industry, for years, mothers have an average in high concentration of PFAS in breast milk. Now, those drinking water from polluted wells and with a mostly animal diet have much higher than average concentration. So, those people who are drinking that polluted water because no other source. And for purification, again, it becomes costly, not affordable, not accessible. So those who are eating meat and also drinking polluted water, they are getting more diseases and disorders. They are being affected more. they are suffering more. So that's why be conscious of what you are doing. Otherwise, you are destined by yourself to suffer. So that's why chemicals are forever. So forever chemicals are forever. So ban PFAS now. If there are PFAS in all water sources, there will be PFAS in soils, plants, vegetables, insects, animals, and also human beings. If water is contaminated, all bodies are contaminated because water is essential. So without water, there is no civilization. No, we have seen civilizations only where there is water. And if water is contaminated, then that's a gone case. Everything is contaminated. That's why in Sanatana Dharma, everything is being worshipped. The rivers, the mountains, the hills, trees, and plants. Why? Why water bodies? Because we need to protect them. We need to keep them safe, pure, clean. That's why when there is a divinity in that, you don't pollute. But when different religions came, they started more human-centric and try to exploit. They exploited clearly all the other species and natural resources on the planet. That's why even in villages or in cities, you don't have natural water for drinking. You need to buy water, drinking water also. Now, who is responsible for that? We ourselves, because we have polluted and we are now paying back. So it's not so easy to pollute or to purify. Which one is so easy, right? To pollute. But to purify, you cannot purify the entire river, entire lake, entire ocean. Is that possible? Now, what is this called? Human stupidity. Right? Hope everyone agrees to that. Can you purify the entire ocean, which you have polluted, which we all have polluted? Now, the kind of human stupidity that too comes with this modern stupid science. Because again, we have to say what we call is science can also be called as stupid science because it is not considering the future and sustainable development. All these scientific advancements today we are paying for that because we have exploited them, we have used for our selfish needs, and today even science is also not able to address because polluting is easy, but purifying, it takes a lot of resources. It takes time, generations together, hundreds and thousands of years. By the time human beings will become extinct, that is what recent warnings reports by international communities. By 2100, the human beings will become extinct. As many species got extinct, are being extinct. What's great in that? We are doing all kind of blunders. And definitely we have to face our own extinction because we are not learning. We are not changing. Even if we are learning, we are not changing. Now then we have to pay for that. It is our own, bad things that we are doing. So the only way out is to change ourselves. If we don't change ourselves, that's all. We need to pay for the suffering. We need to pay for everything. So the better, the early we realize, the better the world will be. As we are talking, looking at the breastfeeding, the PFAS and infant feeding, as for any other chemical contaminant in breast milk, several points must be considered before recommending replacement of breast milk with formula. See, anyway, the environment is polluted. Now, even for preparing breast milk also, you need water, you need some container, you need to wash them. Again, if water is contaminated, everything else is contaminated. Even if pollutants are there in air, and again, while preparing, it becomes more toxic. So see, these all are chain of events that happen. We do one blunder and there are a series of chain reaction that starts and that will hit back in different ways, at multitude and different magnitude from different directions. So first, the infant born to mother with PFAS in breast milk has already been exposed to the same substance in urethra. So it is well known that chemical substance cause more harm when cells divide rapidly, that is early more than late in pregnancy. So in pregnancy more than in the newborn period, in the newborn period more than later, in infancy, and so on. So this means that if PFAS cause harm, that harm has already been caused before birth. So any harm caused will depend on the type of PFAS. Some are more harmful than others, and its concentration. If concentrations are low, breastfeeding in any case is recommended. See, the first option is breastfeeding only. It is only the safe thing that is available in a polluted environment, in a contaminated environment, because nothing is safe, more safer than the breast. And any other is making it more vulnerable. Second, it is well known that breast milk and breastfeeding are beneficial to health, nutrition, growth, and development. In most cases, these benefits will be higher than any harm caused by PFAS. Once again, it will depend on the type of PFAS and its concentration in breast milk. At very high concentrations, such as those found in the minority of mothers in the already mentioned area of northeastern Italy, it may be advisable to avoid or interrupt breastfeeding and turn to formula feeding. Again, when the environment itself is highly polluted and highly contaminated, highly toxic, now even recommending that is also a dangerous, as good as killing our own infant, slowly and steadily. So in all other cases, breastfeeding continues to be the right choice. That's why first priority is breastfeeding, especially for its positive effects on the immune system. So, and thirdly, most formula are cow milk based before switching to formula feeding, or buffalo or cattle, mostly cattle based, right? It would be wise to ensure that formula is PFAS free, because animals' feed is contaminated. Why breast milk is contaminated? Because we are consuming contaminated water, contaminated air, contaminated food, and animals also consume contaminated air, contaminated food, contaminated water. So even animal milk is also contaminated, right? They also have PFAS. So also powder formula needs to be reconstituted with water. Again, the milk is turned into milk powder, and again to prepare it, you need to add with water. So the drinking water is contaminated. It contains PFAS. We are again back to square zero. See, this is our karma. Karma, is not philosophical. That's why we say everything comes back to us, right? Everything comes back to us. So always do good for yourself and also for others. Otherwise, it will come back to you in a number of ways. And this is, we are talking about science. And all these are by the empirical evidence, by the studies that are happening. It's not hypothetical, right? Now, not only we have seen, various aspects. So, and there are also a lot of health and environmental issues. Especially the green feeding campaign, which is eco-feeding, also known as, means healthy, local, and sustainable food. Green feeding starts with breastfeeding, which has a positive impact on our climate and environment. So the core message of this advocacy as a global NGO is, in every journey, it is the first step that counts. Green feeding from birth is first step in the right direction to protect the health of the population and the planet. Now, why this campaign? Green feeding safeguards the health of mothers, children, and Mother Earth now and for future generations. So green feeding is nothing but a eco-friendly feeding. Now what, by this time you have understood. So what is the most safest food for or feed for children or infants? That is breast milk. So when you are breastfeeding, you are green feeding them. No contaminants, no production, production is there anyway. And that is highly safe and secure and adequate with the appropriate temperature. See how much you are saving, how much you are contributing to the society. So green feeding is an advocacy campaign prepared by IPFAN, GIFA, and Canadian partners. It is aimed at decision makers, parents, young people, and caregivers. The objective is to raise awareness of the need to take action from birth to safeguard the health of humans and our environment. So green feeding recognizes breastfeeding as a sustainable and valuable natural resource that has no negative impact on our environment, and no scarce resources are used, no pollution is caused by transport or production or supply or preparation, no garbage or no waste is produced by packaging, expenditure, and also no expenditure on health costs to treat disease. So all these are reduced. See how wonderful, how beautiful God has blessed us with breast milk, and what we are doing? We are exploiting, we are misusing their resource. See, these are the things we should avoid. As a human being, we say we are the intelligent species, but what we are doing? All kinds of blunders. So breastfeeding is under serious threat from commercial practices and urgently needs to be protected, promoted, and supported. So don't go by these marketing gimmicks, marketing, ads and all those things by, these business commercials or commercial giants who want to promote their products. That is, you are jeopardizing your own child, and lifelong you have to pay for hospital bills, medical bills, and because of ill health, you have to put lot of leaves, that is loss of pay, loss of recognition, loss of promotions. So don't be so unrealistic. Don't go by the trend, which is not good in every aspect. Green feeding includes the introduction, that is after 6 months of age, of complementary foods that are safe and nutritious and produced using local products and sustainable agriculture, along with breastfeeding. So till 2 years, you should not stop breastfeeding. So breastfeeding is unprocessed local food, right? Because it's produced by the mother, by the breast. So locally available. You need not go search, procure from any other place. So within the mother itself, there is abundant, no need of additional processing. Breast gives breast milk, right? So breastfeeding contributes to the prevention of global warming, protects biodiversity, and conserves natural resources, Green feeding includes community support for exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months and the addition of appropriate complementary foods for older babies. In contrast to ultra processed foods like formula and artificial baby milks, breast milk is unprocessed, unpacked, and healthy, safe, local food. And the best thing is it's free. Now, see the beauty of nature, how it has blessed and endowed us with breast milk. But what we are doing by going with the commercial products or breast milk substitutes, we are jeopardizing ourselves, the opportunities, the health benefits. So, community support can be undermined by the marketing and promotion of ultra processed foods. Hence, the importance of the international code that protects consumers and families. So, after 6 months, baby eat first foods. So, families should be allowed to make feeding decisions free from commercial pressures. For babies, toddlers, and young children, sustained breastfeeding needs support for as long as the family wants and the child wants or demands. Breast milk continues to be precious sources of nutrition, especially when complemented by safe and nutritious family foods after 6 months. So, locally produced using sustainable agriculture, home prepared family foods are minimally processed. So, after the value for money, sustainable local agriculture provides foods that are biodiverse, reliable, and culturally appropriate. Community support can be undermined by marketing and promotion of ultra processed foods. This is the reason the International Code of Marketing is crucial. So, ultra processed foods, in short known as UPFs, are a risk for our health and major impact on the environment. So, giving formula in comparison to breastfeeding is giving UPFs to our children. We are, with our own hands, with our own decisions, we are killing our own children. So now, in case of emergencies, breast milk is the best source because lack of resources, lack of production, lack of supply. Breast milk is abundant, that is produced every day by the mother for the offspring. So you need not worry about because of the resources, whether it is available or not, whether it is of right quality or quantity or not. No need to worry about. That is, the breast milk is the best food. Now, when we look at the breastfeeding trends or WTI, which is Breastfeeding Trends Initiative, which was launched in 2004, the World Breastfeeding Trends Initiative, WBTI, assess countries to assess the status and benchmark the programs in implementation at the global strategy for infant and young child feeding in a standard way. So it is based on the World Health Organization's tool for national assessment of policy and programs on infant and young child feeding. The WBTI assists countries to measure strengths and weakness on the 10 parameters of policy and program that protect, promote, and support optimal infant and young child feeding IVCF practices. So the WBTI unique also maintains a global data repository of 3 policies and programs. The unique web tool helps in color coding and scoring each indicator. So the WTI process stimulates local action, bringing hope and people together and encourages collaboration and networking bringing people together and encourages collaboration and networking amongst key organizations such as government departments, UN, health professionals, academics, civil society, and other players without conflicts of interest. It assists in consensus building, although so the WTI envisages that all countries create an enabling environment for women to be successful in breastfeeding their babies, optimally at home, health facilities, or at workplaces. So the WBTI aspires to be a trusted leader to motivate policymakers and program managers in countries to use the global data repository of information on breastfeeding and IVCF policies and programs. So WTI envisions to serve as a knowledge platform for program managers, researchers, policymakers, and breastfeeding advocates across the globe. WBTI's mission is to reach all countries to facilitate assessment and tracking of IVCF policies and programs through mobilizing local partnerships without conflicts or interest. So with this, we shall take a break here. If participants have any queries, feel free to share. We'll be able to address it. Okay. If there are no queries or there are no presentation requests, we'll go ahead and after brief presentation, we'll go for closure. So we'll, as you all know, that we have daily commemorations. So we will just look at our daily commemorations. Today is also commemorated as National Allotments Week from August 4th to September 10th in US, which is an annual celebration in the United Kingdom. And this year it takes place from August 4th to 10th. Allotments are small plots of land, refers to the so allotments are small plots of land rented to individuals, usually to grow food crops. There is no standard plot size, but the most common is 830 square feet. So this year, the theme for National Allotments Week is a recognition to the importance of gardening with nature in mind. So in addition to supporting process, So there is no standard plot size, but the most common is 830 square feet. So this year, the theme for National Allotments Week is a recognition of the importance of gardening with nature in mind, in addition to supporting process in the ecosystem, such as pollination. An allotment plot provides a haven for wildlife in urban areas. This week is also commemorated as Simplify Your Life Week in US, observed yearly during the first week of August. This year it takes place from August 4th to 10th. Though its origins are unknown, it is abundantly clear that the work for decluttering So today is also commemorated as Simplify Your Life Week, observed yearly during the first week of August. This year it takes place from August 4th to 10th. Its origins are unknown. It is abundantly clear that week is decluttering and simplifying one's life, which involves getting rid of physical, psychological clutter that may hinder one from living a peaceful and stress-free life. Today is also commemorated as Assistance Dog Day. Assistance Dog Day is celebrated on August 4th every year. Dogs are man's best friend because of their loyalty and dedication. But assistant dogs take this to a whole new level. These dogs help people with disabilities or illness to navigate through life. They help where they can and perform simple tasks like guiding their own owner's path, helping fetch an item, and lots of other activities. These dogs and their trainers deserve to be celebrated and so brought about Assistance Dog Day, which aims to raise funds and increase awareness of the work they do. It makes a part of International Assistance Dog Week. Assistance Dog Week is part of International Assistance Dog Week, IADW, and was created to recognize all of the dedicated, hardworking assistance dogs, helping individuals mitigate their disability-related limitations. These dogs amazingly transform the lives of their human partners with physical and mental disabilities by serving as their helper, companion, aid, best friend, and close member of their family. Assistant dogs are not for personal defense, protection, or comfort. Different types of assistance dogs do different things. Guide dogs help the blind and those with vision to cross the street, walk through doorways, and move around obstacles. Hearing alert dogs help those with hearing loss as they recognize alarms and sirens as well as ringing of telephone and doorbells. Other assistance dogs do other things to help their human counterparts. Today is also commemorated as British Columbia Day in Canada, the name of the first Monday in August when residents of British Columbia celebrate their social local heritage. In other Canadian provinces, the same day is known by different names, unique to their respective areas. For example, George Hamilton Day in Hamilton, Ontario, and So Columbia Day recalls explorer James Douglas' discovery of the southernmost tip of Vancouver Island, the site of the current city of Victoria, and the eventual announcements by the British that the region would become the colony called British Columbia. Similarly, other provinces focus on their particular items of culture, history, and political development. So today is also commemorated as civic holiday in Canada, which falls on August 4th, strives to help foster the spirit of community among residents. The word civic is a reference to municipalities because this day is not mandated as a public holiday across Canada by the federal government. Today is also commemorated as Commerce Day in Iceland, which is celebrated or commemorated every first Monday of August. This year on August 4th, Islanders love this day and look forward to it with great enthusiasm. Though it started as a public holiday for the blue-collar workers, it quickly caught on with other workers in the country and other European nations. Commerce Day is a day to celebrate workers' daily services and sacrifices. It's also a day off for everybody. The National Stock Exchange shuts down its normal operations on Commerce Day, as to do most large and small businesses. Today is also commemorated as Cook Islands Constitution Day. In Cook Islands, celebrate their independence from European colonial rule. Constitution Day is the final and most anticipated part of the Nui, a week-long national event highlighting Cook Islands' culture, history, and heritage. The Ministry of Cultural Development coordinates events including concerts, traditional reed dances, float parades, choir performances, cookouts, and communal sports games. Many Cook Islanders who live in Australia and New Zealand travel back to their country to partake in the festivities. Today is also commemorated as Heritage Day, Alberta in Canada. Known for its sunshine, fresh air, and open spaces, Alberta is a melting point or melting pot of different cultures and ethnicities. The people of Alberta celebrate this diversity each year with Heritage Day, which is observed on the first Monday in August. Museums run special events and there is different theme for each day each year. The annual observance even has its own 3-day festival, which is attended by thousands of Albertans. If you are proud of Alberta's heritage and the famed Canadian cooperation, we have some creative ways you can celebrate. Today is also commemorated as International Clouded Leopard Day, which is celebrated on August 4th every year. It is celebrated to raise awareness, one of the most beautiful and endangered species of animals. The clouded leopard is a bid to improve their numbers both in captivity and in the wild. This animal is known by other names, one of them being the mainland clouded leopard. These species of wildcats inhabit dense forests from the foothills of Himalayas through mainland Southeast Asia into the south of China. Estimates show fewer than 10,000 clouded leopards living in the wild. These shy and nocturnal animals are an endangered species as they are illegally hunted for their fur and also because their habitat is constantly being threatened. The clouded leopard genetically diverged from pantherine cats millions of years ago. They are locally extinct in Singapore, Taiwan, and possibly Hainan Island and Vietnam. Its total population is suspected to be lower than 10,000 mature individuals with no single population numbering more than 1,000 adults. It was listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List in 2008 because of this. Large-scale deforestation and commercial poaching for wildlife trade have continued to threaten the population of the clouded leopard. So their body parts are offered for decoration and clothing, even though it is illegal. And though it is legally protected in many countries, they are being poached and killed. With their existence being continuously threatened, captive breeding programs were brought in 1980s. The clouded leopard has an average lifespan of 11 years in captivity, which is good number compared to them living in the wild. International Clouded Leopard Day was established in 2018 by Howlett's Wild Animal Park to raise awareness of the clouded leopard. The day was spearheaded by Lauren Amos and Dan Kemp, with collaboration with zoos, charities, businesses, individuals, and many more. Millions of people have gotten to know about these animals and dangers they face. As they are constantly kept in people's consciousness, there is a greater chance of conserving them and their habitat. As Lauren Amos and Dan Kemp worked with clouded leopards at Howlett's Wild Animal Park, they fell in love with the animals and decided to celebrate all clouded leopards on August 4th every year, which the world has now adopted. Today is also commemorated as Kiribati Youth Day, marked the first Monday in August by children and youth from the country's regions. This year it falls on August 4th, emphasizes the capabilities and dedication of the new generation to contribute to the building of a successful and stable future. Despite 4 years of conflict in English-speaking territories, continuous periods of civil upheaval and relocation, violent extremism in the northmostern region, and a global pandemic with several severe economic ramifications, youth have demonstrated their resilience and promise. Today is also commemorated as Matis Slovenska Day in Slovakia, which is an annual commemoration held on August 4th in Slovakia. Matica Slovenska, that is Slovak Matica, is a national cultural and scientific organization based in Martin, Slovakia. It was established in 1863 and revived in 1990. The organization operates both domestically and internationally. Slovak Matica is a government-run organization that serves as a national scientific and cultural center. Slovak Matica works to promote and protect Slovak culture and the national rights, identity, and development. Today is also commemorated as Natal Day in Canada in honor of the Canadian province of Nova Scotia that began in 1895. Natal Day was organized as a way to celebrate Nova Scotia's history. Natal, in case you are wondering, it is from the Latin word, the birth. Festivities for this day typically last the whole weekend before the Natal Day, which falls on Monday, so as to get ready to celebrate and attend a lot of outdoor parties and eat a ton of cake. As part of celebrations. Today is also commemorated as New South Wales Bank Holiday in Australia. Since 1875, New South Wales have enjoyed one of its New South Wales Bank Holiday each first Monday of August. The origins of this day lie in the British rule. Bank employees were given an extended weekend as compensation for putting in extra hours on June 30. They needed the time to close balance sheets. Regardless of the day's origins, let's all give thanks to the 3-day weekends, the savior of 9 to 5 rounders around the world. Today is also commemorated as Single Working Women's Day in US. Those in labor force contribute a whole lot to our society. and Single Women's Day, held each year on August 4th, aims to highlight this very fact. The unofficial national holiday falls within the Single Working Women's Week, as its name implies. This day celebrates all those women who are gainfully employed. And today is also commemorated as World Alternative Games in Wales, which takes place on a date determined by the organizers. This year it takes place on August 4th. The World Alternative Games is an annual event that includes thrilling, adventurous, and fun games and sports. The day is Alternative Olympics with less international attention and standard laws. This is an unusual sports event that started in 2002. So with this, we shall end today's commemorations. Thank you everyone for joining us. If anyone would like to make any presentations or share your observations, feedbacks are welcome. Share in chat box. Okay, then there are no queries, suggestions, feedback, then we'll conclude it and call for the day. We request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form which has been raised in the form of votes. So see you all tomorrow, the same time with the same joining link with more information, enlightening sessions on breastfeeding and its promotion. See you all tomorrow with the same joining link. Take care. Good night.